to buy opportunity. The bottom line is that these two companies have a huge opportunity. There are only two companies in an entire sector. My story doesn't start with religion. My story doesn't start with the truth. My story starts with Alma de Shikra, the world of lies. God gave, God took, may His name be blessed.
Is that you can never assume anything. You know, if you want to know an answer, you have to ask. If you want to know the truth, you have to seek it. You know, as Hashem says in the book of Deuteronomy, if you look for me, you'll find me. If you look for me with all of your heart, all of your soul. Meaning that Hashem is already telling you that if you actually want an answer, you have to show that you want it. You can't just assume you know everything. At the same token, I'm seeing a lot of people that have emailed me and texted me and so on, and contacted me after that shiur, that they see the problems that we mentioned in the shiur in their own communities, and sometimes even in their own household, where somebody is worshiping a rabbi, or Shem Rachem, you know, turning their rabbi into a god, or into a Mashiach, or into something that's beyond the norm. And completely ignoring the Torah that rabbi actually taught. Because if you ask any real rabbi, no one is ever going to say that they're a Mashiach, or they're anything even remotely close to a Mashiach. Rabbi is there to teach you, he's there to guide you, he's there to tell you how much of the prescription medicine you have to take, what Torah to learn, what's the right fit for you, what's the wrong fit for you. And I think that that's one of the things that's commonly misunderstood in today's world. And actually, we learned from last week's parasha, Parashat Lech Lecha, we have the story of Avraham Avinu and Lot, where on one end, Lot had the merit of being next to one of the most righteous people that ever existed, Avraham Avinu. But then Lot decides to leave and go to Sodom, go to Sodom. And he becomes a judge over there. And he's mentioned again in this week's parasha, Parashat Vayera. Vayera elav Adonai be'elone mamre, ve'hu yoshev petach ha'oel kechom hayom. Hashem appeared to him, meaning to Avraham, in the plains of Mamre, while he was sitting at the entrance of the tent in the heat of the day. This is talking about how Avraham Avinu, after doing the circumcision, after doing the Brit Milah, he was sitting at the entrance of his tent, looking for guests, despite the fact that it was the third day after his Brit Milah, which, for anyone who's had a Brit Milah as an adult, knows that that is the most difficult time. It's the most painful time. So, Avraham Avinu, despite having a huge amount of pain, he's not exactly a 8 days old baby that's not going to remember it. He is looking for guests. So we see from here, just from the first verse of this week's parasha, just the level of righteousness and chesed that Avraham Avinu was accustomed to, and how he trained himself, and pretty much it became part of his DNA to welcome guests, to do chesed, because he figured that by doing chesed for Hashem's creations, he's doing chesed for Hashem. So Lot had an opportunity to grow up with him, had an opportunity to be chavruta with him, had an opportunity to have him as his Rav. He was his rabbi. So how does Lot one day decide, okay, you know what? Not only am I going to leave my rabbi, but I'm going to go be the judge of the worst place on earth, Sodom. This is insanity. This is despicable. What would you learn? Torah upside down. What did you learn for all these years? And this is unfortunately what happens when sometimes the student gets ahead of himself and figures, you know what, I learned a couple of Gemarot, I learned a couple of Parashot, I'm already religious for 3 years, Rabbi. 3 years I'm keeping Shabbat. 3 years I've been watching my Brit. I don't think I need a rabbi anymore. I read the books, I don't need it anymore. He thinks he already knows as much as the rabbi. He starts giving the rabbi different. Oh, Rabbi, did you see this chidush? Start sending him material. Start sending him information. Hey, Rabbi, did you know the answer to this one? Starts testing his rabbi, forgetting where the knowledge came from originally. And this is actually what happened with J.C. Penney, where J.C. Penney thought that he was as big as his rabbi, Yeshua ben Parchia, one of the Tanas, one of the holy Tanas that ever lived. And this is what's happened several times throughout history, where the student thinks that after they learned a few years, they know more than the teacher. They figured they learned 3 years. Pretty much they learned everything that the rabbi said. I hear this a lot, unfortunately, with people that tell me, for example, they start listening to me or they start listening to another rabbi, whatever way they contact me, and they say, oh, no, listen, I've already listened to all of Rabbi Mizrahi's lectures. Right away, I know the guy's a liar. Right away. First sentence says, I already listened to all of Rabbi Mizrahi's lectures. I already know he's a liar. There's no way that you listen to 5,000 lectures. There's no way. I listened to many. I listened to probably 1,500, 2,000 of his lectures. And I could tell you that if you actually listen to the lectures, the questions you have you wouldn't have them. You wouldn't have those questions. You're asking me, why did Hashem punish the righteous, and it looks like Hashem punishes the righteous and gives benefit to the wicked. You're asking very basic questions. He covered it in CD number 1, CD number 2, CD number 3, CD number 4, CD number 5. Covered in every single shiur. How, you're still asking that question? People come to me, oh, no, I watched all of his lectures. I watched all of it. Okay, so how come you still act like an animal? How come you're still not modest? How come you still don't keep Shabbat? How come you still keep half the Shabbat? How come you don't know anything yet? What'd you watch? What'd you put in the background, like a television commercial? What'd you do? So people have to get ahead of themselves, or stop getting ahead of themselves, and realize there's a lot of Torah. Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Mizrahi has been doing it for over 22 years. He has thousands of lectures. Maybe you're going to hear a couple of jokes or a couple of stories repeated because there's so many lectures, but in general, if you specifically target certain lectures, you're going to find new material to no end. If you actually listen to a few hundred lectures, by then already you're a complete Baal Tshuva already for a couple of years, and you're very strong. If you've listened to 1,000, 1,500 lectures, then you should be doing KIRUV already. If you listen to all of his lectures, you definitely should not be coming to me with questions. So stop saying that you listen to all the lectures, because it makes you look like a fool. You did not listen to all of his lectures. It looks like you did, and it feels like you did, because you've been listening to him for a year or 2 years, but 4,000 lectures is a lot of time. Same thing with mine. I mean, I only have a few hundred lectures, and the reality of it is, for anyone, only people that have started with me from the beginning, really listen to all of them. And Baruch Hashem, we try really, really hard to cover new information every single time. New stories, new information, new everything. What's the point of what I'm trying to say here? The key is that you have to understand, you learned 3 years, your rabbi already learned for longer. So let's say, if your rabbi already learned for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years before you came to him, he already learned 10, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever he learned. So you came after he's already doing it for 15 years, let's say. So you learned 3 years. Great. But now he learned 18 years. He also grew. You weren't the only one that grew. The world didn't stop because you did tshuva. And as a matter of fact, his growth, if he's a Talmid Chacham, is much more drastic than yours. Much more drastic, because with Torah, there's a lot of siyat lishma. Somebody that's doing zikuy rabim, someone that's actually helping people do tshuva, someone that's actually really into it. The growth only grows itself. It expands drastically. So you learned 3 years, great, chazaku baruch, but you can't say you know more than your rabbi. And that's one of the mistakes that people make. They think that, oh no, I already learned everything that this rabbi said, let me go on my own. And it's a very, very big mistake, and I've seen it a couple of times, unfortunately, even with my own students. I had one guy that, came here, Baruch Hashem, turned from a kofel to a Baal Tshuva, Chazak u'Baruch, everything was great. But then he decided after about a year that it's time for him to go and leave work, leave the business world, and go to the kollel 100%. Theoretically, it sounds terrific. Theoretically, I would like every single one of my students to go to a kollel, learn 24 hours a day, become the next Tana. Have Moshe Rabbeinu send me messages from Shamayim, tell me, wow, all of your students are becoming like Rabbi Akiva students. But in reality, that's not reality. Why? Because it's not, being a avrech is not a fit for everyone. Some people yes, some people no. So, for example, with him, maybe he could potentially be one. In my opinion, he took it too fast. Because in order to be an avrech, it's not just about going to a place and learning just because you like learning. Who doesn't like learning? Once you have a little bit of taste of Torah, of course you're going to like learning. It's beautiful, it's tasty, it's amazing, it's delicious, it's a high 24 hours a day. Of course you're going to want to learn. But when you have a family, you have kids, you have responsibilities, and all of a sudden you just decide to pick up and leave everything, and you're going to depend on a couple of $1,000s that you have in the bank. You're going to put yourself into a test that at that point you can't stand. At that point you're not going to be able to withstand that test unless there's some major miracle, and we're not allowed to depend on miracles. So this is where you're supposed to ask your rabbi, listen, what do you think? You know, when my opinion was asked, I told him, no, I think you should learn part of the time, half the day, and study it. And work the other half of the day, not just go 100% because you're not ready for it. It'll save you the headaches and the emunah battle that you're going to have to deal with when, later on. He goes, no, but I have money. Yeah, of course. Right now it sounds great. Right now you have money in the bank. Right now you're excited about going to learn. Right now your wife did tshuva also. Right now everything is fantastic. Right now you're like at La La Land. Great. It's not going to be like that when you run out of money. It's not going to be like that when you're a month away from running out of money. What are you going to do? And the problem is when you don't follow a slow and steady system, you put yourself at risk to chas v'shalom, leave everything. But one day you have the emunah battle, you have an emunah test. Hashem says, okay, you know what? You took the chance. You want the test. David HaMelech, one of the greatest people that ever lived. The fourth wheel in Hashem's Merkava. Asked Hashem for a test. Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin. How come Am Yisrael doesn't say Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and David? So he says to Hashem. Hashem says to him, it's because I tested them, but I didn't test you. So test me, Hashem. He says, Hashem says to him, I'm going to test you, and I'm going to do something with you I didn't do with them. And what's that? I'm going to tell you I'm going to test you. They didn't know ahead of time they're being tested. So I'm giving you a heads up, but you're still not going to pass. You're still not going to pass. Gemara says that David HaMelech did not sin, and as a matter of fact, failed the test intentionally. But nonetheless, a test was had and a test was failed. So somebody wants to go up a level. Great. Eventually the test is going to come. Can you pass it? Bezat Hashem you can. But if you're not really prepared 100%, if you don't have the level of emunah that's necessary, you're putting yourself at risk. And what happens is, Hashem gives you the test, you don't pass the test, and you think, you know what, since I've failed this test, I'm probably going to fail the other test, and the other test, and Yetzirah gets into your head, and Hashem Yerachem. So it's very, very important to understand that the rabbi is not just there to give you a shiur Torah once a week and say hi if you have or send him a text question once in a while. A rabbi is supposed to be there for you to ask him some of the most important and sensitive issues before you make any decision, before you do anything. You have to make sure that you go to your rabbi and you ask him, what are you going to do? Because if you use your rabbi, then you're going to have the right direction. You don't use your rabbi. Some people, even in this generation, are saying that if somebody doesn't have a rabbi, it's better they don't do tshuva. To that extent. Why? Because at least when they didn't know anything, they weren't desecrating Hashem's name on purpose. But when they did tshuva, started keeping Shabbat, and then stopped listening to their rabbi, they start telling people halachot. No, halacha this, halacha this. I heard this one kid when I was in Israel. Cute kid, but has to get himself a rabbi. He heard, or I don't know, maybe wherever he heard this thing, it's completely wrong. He said, I heard from Rav, the Rav Kanievsky wrote on halacha, anyone that has an iPhone has no share of the world to come.
I heard that too.
It's complete nonsense. Rav Kanievsky didn't say that. It's number one. Number two, it's not default if you have a smartphone. It's obviously if you're going to spend any time, whether it's on your phone, your computer, or in any other way, looking at pornography and disgusting things, then of course you have no share of the world to come. You don't need to have Kanievsky to tell you that. But just because you have a phone, you have no share of the world to come. This is demented. There's no halakha that was passed that way. You didn't see, Moses didn't have an halakha like that. But people just make up stuff. They make up stuff. So when they don't have direction, they start making up things. They hear something on the internet. They hear something from somebody that's walking around with a kippah and that's just did tshuva 3 weeks ago. And they're like, oh yeah, what he said is like Moshe from Al Sinai. Relax. Go to your rabbi, verify, look at the books. Where does it say it? Enough with the hearsay and the nonsense of this guy said this and this guy said that. Everyone's a Mashiach all of a sudden. Enough. Or everybody wants to be a Rashi. All of a sudden everybody has a chidush. Everybody wants to be Rashi. Oh no, this is what it means. Look, the gematria of this and the gematria of that. First of all, we don't make halakha through gematria. Second of all, as the Rambam says, gematria is a way to stimulate the brain. It's not we don't make life and death sentences based on gematria. Like all this thing that's been happening over the last month. Everybody keeps sending the same text of how Donald Trump is the Mashiach because the gematria of Donald Trump is, 400 something. And that's the same thing as Mashiach, and Hillary's Amalek. Enough with the nonsense. Enough. He's not the Mashiach. He can't be the Mashiach because that's what the Torah says. Mashiach has to be Jewish. And not only Jewish, has to be a natural born Jew. And not only a natural born Jew, has to be from the seed of David. Enough. And also, it also says in the book of Jeremiah and several other places, and also in the Torah itself, Arur Adam, cursed is the man that depends on man. Meaning, don't put so much trust in not Donald Trump, and not Hillary, and not Billary, and not this one, and not that one, not anyone. The only thing you can trust is Hashem. That's it. Everybody's spending so much energy about the politics all of a sudden. Everybody became a newscaster. Everybody's a CNN anchor. Oh yeah, what do you think of this? What do I care? What do I care about all these things? Hashem runs the show. You haven't gotten it yet? Hashem runs the show. Hashem wanted him to win, he won. Hashem wants him to be Amalek, he'll be Amalek too. Whatever Hashem wants will happen. He could be good, he could be bad, who knows? One day everybody was a fan. The next day, I think it was today or yesterday, somebody told me that one of his main advisors is like a Ku Klux Klan person. Like a mamash, like an anti-Semite, like a notable anti-Semite. The point is that Hashem is showing you that if He wants to do something, He'll do something, whether it's obvious or not obvious. Don't rely on men. Don't depend on them. Only depend on Hashem. And in order for you to understand what Hashem says, you need some guidance. Everyone needs a rabbi. I have a rabbi. I actually have two rabbis. Rav Mizrahi has rabbis. My rabbis have rabbis. Everyone has a rabbi. You don't have a rabbi, you're going to have a very, very hard time. You have a rabbi but you don't listen to him, that means you don't have a rabbi. And you're going to make stupid moves, and you're going to put yourself at risk for no reason. For much, no reason. So understand that having this rabbi is very, very critical. And also, to finalize this point, is that this is also the main thing that I heard with the people that told me that yes, the point that we made about Shlom Bayit, how people go to the grave of Rabbi Nachman from Breslev and putting their Shlom Bayit on the line. And apparently this is not a new insight that I created. This is reality. A lot of people, I've heard this before, and I heard it again after I said it, that many of the wives are very, very unhappy that their husbands are going to this gravesite and praying while leaving their family behind on Rosh Hashanah, the main time that they have to spend together. So again, you may think that going there is a mitzvah. You may think it's going there and praying with 30, 40,000 Jews is a mitzvah. Being next to a righteous tzaddik that died is a mitzvah. You may think that. But any real rabbi will tell you it's not. Why? Because if your wife is unhappy, then you're making a huge sin. And we learn here in this week's parasha, when in chapter 18, verse 12, after the malachim, the angels, come to Avraham and tell him, this time next year you're going to have a son. It says, ותצחק שרה בקרבה לאמור אחרי בלותי הייתה לי עדנה ואדוני זקן. ויאמר אדוני אל אברהם, למה זה צחקה שרה לאמור האף אמנם אלד ואני זקנתי? And Sarah laughed at herself, saying, after I have withered, shall I again have a delicate skin and my husband is old? Sarah is saying, how am I going to have a son? She's laughing to herself, how am I going to have a son? I'm old now. And my husband's old. So Hashem said to Avraham, why is it that Sarah laughed, saying, shall I in truth bear a child, though I have aged? Is anything beyond Hashem? So here you see, Hashem actually changed the truth. Hashem changed what Sarah said. Sarah didn't say, I'm old. Sarah said, my husband's old. So what happened? Hashem forgot. What happened? So Hashem is telling Avraham, your wife says that she's old. Why? Because Hashem knows, as the Creator knows His creation, that if He tells the husband, if He tells Avraham, listen, by the way, your wife said that you're old, Avraham's going to take it to heart. He's not going to like it. Well, my wife thinks I'm old. Maybe she doesn't like me anymore. Maybe she's going to look for somebody else. A guy is always going to be jealous. He could be 150 years old, still going to be jealous. Anyone that loves his wife has to be jealous. Obviously, if you're righteous, you have a certain, you contain this jealousy. But that's also the reason why a righteous husband will never let his wife walk around like a prostitute, half naked and all that stuff. Never. Why do you want to share your diamond with the rest of the world? For what? What benefit do you get out of it? That everybody has in their mind pictures of your wife naked? This is what you want in your life?
And it harms the parnasah also.
Forget the parnasah. People thinking about your wife naked, is something wrong with you if you actually like that. Forget the parnasah, forget all the skulot, forget all that stuff. There's another guy in the world that thinks of your wife. There's something wrong with you if you're okay with that. There's mamash something wrong with you. So Avraham here is getting news from Hashem that his wife thinks that she's old. But she didn't say that. She said he's old. But Hashem is telling him that he changed the truth. In essence, we're only allowed to say it because that's what happened. It's written in the Torah. Hashem lied. He changed the truth for what? For the purpose of Shlom Bayit. Because if he would have told Avraham that his wife thinks he's old, Avraham could be upset at his wife and it could create Shlom Bayit issues. That's how important Shlom Bayit is. Hashem himself wrote a few verses in the Torah. It's not a theory. It's not like some pirush. It's not some commentary. This is what's written here. Chapter 18, verse 12 and 13. Literal Torah. You don't need Rashi, you don't need me, you don't need anything. You read it yourself. This is what it says. So if Hashem decided that Shlom Bayit is so important that He is okay with signing off His name with something different from the truth, you think that it's okay for anybody to go to some grave or some anywhere and put his Shlom Bayit on the line, even for a second, even for a half a second? You think this tzaddik in Uman, where his body is buried, you think he wants you to put your Shlom Bayit on the line? You think the Rebbe from Lubavitch wants you to put your Olam Haba on the line by calling him Mashiach, by calling him God, by calling him whatever he's not? It's complete nonsense. People have to start learning Torah from the sages, from Hashem Yitbarach, and stop making up this craziness that they're making up, because it's mamash not doing anybody any good. So, with that being said, we see that this week's parasha already teaches us a very, very important life lesson. Number one, if you want to have the blessing of Hashem in your life, you must have Shlom Bayit, because Hashem Himself obviously put His name on the line for it. And also, we talked about last week how in the act of Sotah, Hashem allowed us to erase His name for the sake of Shlom Bayit.
I've heard enough new arrival screams echoing through the hallway to know that this ain't good. Once they pass them through the infierno, they don't come back. It's enough to make you go crazy.
Do not think we fear you, Spirit. We know your power is born of evil. This is your last night in the land of the living. You understand me, malevolent demon?
There was a rich family that lived here called the Hetheringtons, and unfortunately, their daughter passed away of a heart attack inside the house. Basically, they were so devastated that they reached out to people claiming to be psychic mediums. They actually weren't psychic mediums. They opened up a total of 11 portals inside this house and invited spirits and entities from all different kinds of dimensions.
Well, I think there are certain pieces of evidence that there is an afterlife.
Resurrection of the dead is affirmed pretty clearly in the Talmud and the Midrash.
To be honest with you, to give this lecture is a nightmare. If it was up to me, I wouldn't. There's going to be some graphic details.
This place is a maze.
The person after death went to a place called Sheol.
This is by far the largest near-death experience study that has ever been conducted.
People go to a place and they experience weird things. And sometimes they actually will see a character of some type. Well, where did that come from?
may describe feeling profoundly peaceful, seeing a bright, warm, welcoming light. Some people described watching doctors and nurses working on them with incredible accuracy.
Next thing I knew, I was above my body watching the operation.
How long did you feel like you were gone?
I went to a place of timelessness. And so what that means, it could have been a second, could have been 5 minutes. I don't know.
Can you imagine waking up from your sleep and not being able to move?
As I'm lying there, I realized that there's an evil presence next to me.
Do you believe that angels, demons exist?
Holy shit, dude, get out of here! Oh my god, dude!
Strange things keep happening. Bizarre nightmares. As if I'm on fire.
Whoa, what the hell is this? Man, I've got bad chest pain.
Satan's Hollow is what it's called, the portal to hell.
Some people calling it an eye of fire, while others said it looked like the portal to hell opening up.
And the next thing I know, I was outside of my body, looking at my body.
What I'm going to do is called claromancy, the art of throwing lots or throwing bones.
2,000 years of experience, passed down, recorded, of how demons work.
God has them all on a leash, and he lets the leash go enough to let them tempt us, because that's what makes us spiritually stronger.
I'm trying to be as graphic as possible so you understand what we're talking about.
It's your ticket to reality. It's your ticket to freedom. It's your ticket to immortality.
Is there an afterlife? Is there a
This
God?
is the type of information that can keep you away from the Yetzirah.
What happens to us after we die?